Imagine this: a Boeing 747 on the verge of liftoff, shrouded in a dense, blinding fog. The pilot advances the throttles, the landing lights pierce the gloom, and the colossal aircraft surges past its point of no return takeoff speed. In that precise, irreversible moment, a spectral form materializes from the mist. Another Boeing 747 on the very same runway, hurtling directly towards them, mere meters separating the two titans. The catastrophe that unfolded next defies belief. The questions that haunt us: how did this nightmare become reality? Where was air traffic control in all of this? And what seemingly insignificant misstep triggered the deadliest event in aviation history? This harrowing incident transpired in Spain's Canary Islands, forever etched into memory as the Tenerife airport disaster. Welcome back to another Zim Voice video. Our story commences the day prior to the tragedy, on March 26, 1977. Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, departed Los Angeles. Its itinerary included a stop in New York to board additional passengers, with its ultimate destination being Las Palmas in the Canary Islands, situated across the vast expanse of the ocean. This was a chartered journey, operating at full capacity, primarily carrying elderly travelers eagerly anticipating a cruise ship excursion in Las Palmas. Las Palmas, the capital of the Canary Islands, lies approximately 100 kilometers off the Moroccan coast, representing Spain's southernmost territory. This locale is globally renowned for its idyllic tropical climate. However, in 1977, beneath the Canary Islands' picturesque facade, simmered a hidden political unrest. A separatist organization, the MPIAC, was actively campaigning for the Canary Islands' independence from Spain, frequently resorting to violent tactics to advance their cause. It was an act of such violence that set in motion this calamitous chain of events. Pan Am Flight 1736, having collected its passengers from New York's JFK International Airport, set course for Las Palmas Island. The flight crew comprised 56-year-old Captain Victor Grubbs, 39-year-old First Officer Robert Bragg, and 46-year-old flight engineer George Warnes, complemented by 13 flight attendants and 380 passengers. These details describe Pan Am Flight 1736, now gracefully traversing the Atlantic. Now let's shift our focus to the second aircraft involved in this tragedy. At Amsterdam Airport in the Netherlands, KLM Flight 4805 was preparing for its departure. This too was a Boeing 747, also destined for Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. Its flight deck crew included 50-year-old Captain Jacob, 42-year-old First Officer Klaas, and 48-year-old flight engineer Willem. Aboard were 11 flight attendants and 235 passengers. KLM Flight 4805 took off from Amsterdam International Airport after completing boarding procedures. Both aircraft were now en route to Las Palmas Airport in the Canary Islands. Meanwhile, at Las Palmas Airport, two individuals approached the terminal building. They placed a bag outside a florist shop and vanished. The bag concealed a bomb, equipped with a timed detonator. Precisely at 1 p.m., a phone call was received, the Las Palmas Airport reception desk. The caller identified himself as a member of the MPAC group, the same organization mentioned earlier, and asserted that bombs would detonate at Las Palmas Airport within the next 15 minutes. Airport personnel sprang into immediate action, evacuating the entire Las Palmas Airport before the 15-minute deadline elapsed. Their frantic efforts gave way to terror when, exactly 15 minutes later, a powerful explosion rocked the terminal. The blast caused a significant portion of the terminal building's roof to collapse. All operations at Las Palmas Airport were halted. All flights were cancelled, and incoming flights were rerouted. A short while later, KLM Flight 4805, approaching from Amsterdam, neared Las Palmas. However, air traffic control informed them of the airport explosion and directed the flight to land at Tenerife Islands Airport, located 110 kilometers away. After an additional 25-minute flight, the KLM captain touched down on runway 30 at Tenerife Airport at 1:38 p.m. At the very same moment, Pan Am Flight 1736, inbound from New York, also approached Las Palmas and was subsequently diverted to Tenerife Airport. At this time, nearly all air traffic was being redirected to Tenerife Airport, as it was the nearest viable alternative. The activity at Tenerife Airport rapidly intensified. It's crucial to understand that Tenerife Airport is a smaller facility nestled in a mountainous region in close proximity to the Atlantic Ocean at an elevation of approximately 2,000 feet. The surrounding landscape of towering mountains means that moist Atlantic air, upon encountering these elevations and ascending, rapidly cools and condenses into cloud formations. This sudden atmospheric shift is a common occurrence here. When the Pan Am and KLM flights initially landed at Tenerife Airport, visibility was excellent. However, cloud cover soon descended, dramatically reducing visibility. When clouds blanketed the runway, visibility plummeted to as low as 300 meters, only to clear moments later, offering up to 2 kilometers of visibility. The duration of their stay at the airport was uncertain. Passengers were permitted to disembark, allowing them to refresh themselves after their extended flights. Concurrently, KLM Flight 4805, scheduled for a return flight to Amsterdam, made the decision to refuel its tanks there, aiming to avoid any time delays for refueling at Las Palmas Airport once it reopened. They had just commenced refueling when news arrived that Las Palmas was reopening. Both flights began reboarding their passengers, but the taxiway was obstructed by KLM's refueling operation. Tenerife Airport is a compact airport, featuring a single runway, a single taxiway, and a single apron adjacent to the terminal, as depicted in this animation. Such a high volume of traffic was highly unusual here, especially with Boeing jumbo jets. Due to KLM Flight 4805's refueling, the Pan Am aircraft was unable to depart the terminal area and proceed to the runway. They were instructed to remain near the terminal until KLM's refueling was complete. At 4:45 p.m., KLM's refueling concluded, and the captain began preparations to move from the taxiway. Given the crowded apron, with other aircraft also blocking the taxiway, the controller instructed the KLM pilots, who were positioned on the far western side of the taxiway, to taxi down the runway to its extreme eastern end, execute a 180-degree turn, and position themselves for takeoff. As KLM 4805 commenced its taxi, the controller directed Pan Am Air to follow KLM on the runway, but to exit onto the taxiway at exit C3, as KLM 4805 was to utilize this very runway for its departure. Visibility was significantly low and deteriorating with each passing minute. KLM 4805 traversed the entire runway, and upon reaching its eastern extremity, performed a 180-degree turn to enter its takeoff stance. The Pan Am Air pilots also began taxiing on the runway. However, due to the dense fog, they could discern exits C1 and C2, but inexplicably bypassed exit C3. This oversight was compounded by the fact that exit C3 led back to the apron. Perhaps this configuration contributed to their inability to clearly identify C3. Furthermore, Tenerife Airport lacked adequate signage for its runway exits. While ground markings are typically present on the tarmac to delineate runway exits, these were conspicuously absent here. As Pan Am Flight 1736 was passing C2, the captain of KLM 4805 requested takeoff clearance from the control tower. It was at this juncture that a cascade of back-to-back misunderstandings began. The control tower, unable to visually observe either aircraft due to the fog, also lacked a radar system at this airport. At this point, the control tower commenced providing KLM with instructions regarding their post-takeoff route, but at no point in this transmission was actual takeoff clearance granted. Nonetheless, KLM misinterpreted this and clearance, and the KLM captain responded, "We are at takeoff." There remains ambiguity as to whether he uttered "we are at takeoff" or "we are taking off." But in reply, the control tower stated, "Okay," but after a brief pause, the control tower clarified, "Stand by for takeoff. I will call you." This was a pivotal message, explicitly indicating that takeoff was not yet authorized. However, this critical communication failed to reach the KLM cockpit because, at that precise moment, near C3 on the runway, the Pan Am Flight 1736 pilots who had been monitoring the entire conversation also transmitted a message. "We are still down the runway." The simultaneous transmission of the control tower's standby message to KLM and Pan Am's message resulted in a garbled, unintelligible sound in the KLM cockpit. Pan Am Flight 1736, having inadvertently passed C3, was instructed by the control tower to notify them upon exiting the runway, to which the Pan Am pilots replied, "Okay." But by this time, the captain of KLM Flight 4805 had advanced the thrust levers, convinced that he had received authorization from the control tower. At this crucial juncture, the KLM flight engineer had overheard the message conveyed to Pan Am Flight by the control tower and promptly informed the captain that they were still on the runway. However, for reasons unknown, the captain may have misheard due to the background noise and simply uttered, "Oh yes," continuing with the takeoff sequence. Due to the fog, their visual range was limited to a mere 300 meters. Suddenly, the Pan Am pilots glimpsed headlights piercing through the fog on the runway. Initially, they presumed the KLM flight was stationary, but in the next instant, they realized it was hurtling towards them at an alarming speed. They immediately attempted to swerve their aircraft off the runway, but it was too late. KLM's right engine tore through Pan Am's first-class cabin. The landing gear also collapsed, and the aircraft careened onto the runway 150 meters away, erupting in a horrific conflagration, its fuel tanks brimming, making the inferno's intensity truly unimaginable. All 248 individuals aboard perished instantly. On the Pan Am flight, passengers had no time to process the unfolding horror. First-class occupants died on impact, but many in economy class managed to escape through ruptures in the fuselage. Several survivors plunged from a height of 20 feet to safety. Out of Pan Am flight's 396 passengers, only 61 survived. More lives might have been spared, but the pervasive fog meant the control tower remained oblivious to the accident for some time. They were only alerted when another aircraft parked on the apron observed flames erupting on the runway and relayed the information to the control tower. Rescue vehicles, hampered by the dense fog, were also significantly delayed. A total of 583 lives were tragically extinguished in this catastrophic event in a mere blink of an eye. The subsequent investigation involved meticulous examination of the cockpit voice recorders from both aircraft, revealing all the details presented in this video. The investigation team concluded that a confluence of events contributed to this disaster. Initially, the bomb detonation at Las Palmas, followed by KLM obstructing the taxiway by refueling at Tenerife Airport. Had they not done so, Pan Am Flight 1736 would have departed earlier. Subsequently, the sudden deterioration of visibility and Pan Am's failure to locate exit C3 played a role. Nevertheless, the investigation team ultimately held the crew of KLM Flight 4805 responsible for the accident. Given that they proceeded with takeoff without proper clearance, even after the flight engineer had cautioned the captain just 5 seconds prior. The Tenerife airport disaster served as a stark awakening for the entire aviation industry. Profound transformations were implemented following this catastrophe. Aircraft call signs were revised, their protocols were amended, radar systems became mandatory at all airports, and holding points and navigational